If you work for a brand or an agency that has to choose music to go to content, whether it's internal content or external content, you've probably felt the pain of scrolling through hours and hours worth of music, not really knowing what to choose. You don't have any guidelines in place like you do with your visual guidelines, and staff members are ultimately potentially making wrong decisions in the type of music you want that represents your brand. If that sounds like you, by the end of this video, I'm hoping I've got some solutions for you, at least in terms of a roadmap in how to solve that problem, which will ultimately save your brand or your agency hundreds of thousands on time spent choosing the wrong kind of music. How a bespoke music library saves time, money, and brand sanity. And you might think, crikey, that sounds expensive. Having my own brand music library, that's surely going to cost a lot. Well, actually, funnily enough, it's costing less for most of our clients than it is for you using stock music, and I'll explain why in this video. So does this sound like you? Endless time wasted picking the right track. Everyone's got an opinion, but no one's agreeing. Music choices are stalling projects and frustrating teams, and somehow the brand still sounds different every single time. The hidden cost of choice here is that every campaign is starting from scratch. Countless hours are lost scrolling through those stock library music, which I need to remind you is you are paying staff members, or an agency is paying staff members to scroll through stock music hours and hours and hours on end, sometimes days on end, to choose a piece of music. Now, if you know how many hours that is, multiplied by the amount of that you pay your staff or the teams per hour, starts to add up. We've calculated on average it's 7,500 per team member per year, simply scrolling and choosing through music and editing it to videos. Like, that's a lot, that's huge. So if you think you're not spending that much on music because you use stock library music, have you calculated that time and staff costs into that at the same time? Licensing surprises and rights are confusing right now, especially with social media developing the way that it is. It's difficult to navigate. And meanwhile, consistency is slipping through the cracks. And brand consistency is the main asset that you're building with your visuals. So why not pay attention to how you're doing that through sound as well? That's the problem that we aim to solve for people. So the real problem, if we break it down, is that it's your personal taste versus what is right for the brand. Subjective rather than objective. And teams are picking music based on personal preference. It's what you like versus what's on brand for the demographic you're trying to connect with. And stakeholder feedback turns subjective really fast without structured approach. We've actually had some stakeholders that have shown content to their partners or to their family, got some feedback on whether they liked the music, and then they've made a big decision based on their family feedback. Is their family the right demographic? Is their family in line with the core values of the brand? Most likely not. And that can be very frustrating for teams and for yourselves. So emotion tends to win the arguments in those scenarios, not the brand strategy. And this is hugely detrimental and hugely costly to brands, to agencies, to processes. So when sound becomes strategy, you need, that's meant to say, sonic guidelines or audio guidelines, just like the visual ones that you have. We create audio guidelines for brands to hold and have in their folders for their teams. They live side by side, and it means that it removes any chance of teams getting this wrong. And a library gives everyone one shared sound language. Rather than dipping into a sound library online like Epidemic Sound or Artlist, these are all libraries that have hundreds of thousands of pieces of music on there. Where do you start? So instead, what we do is we create a more bespoke system that works for each brand, for each agency, that is all on-brand music that's recognizable, using melodies and rhythmic patterns that are recognizable to the brand, so that people can dip in and choose different emotions and choose different energies much quicker, but also without making a mistake. All that music is approved by the brand. And it shifts the question from, do we like it, to, is it us? Is it us as a brand? And that is a huge shift to make. So that creative freedom within clear brand boundaries, brand guidelines, once that's approved, it's almost impossible to go wrong. It can't be, hang on a minute, this music doesn't feel like us, because all this music has been approved by the stakeholders. So what actually is a sonic library? It's a curated collection of original music built from your sonic DNA. We work with brands to create the DNA of the brand so that every piece of music is going off that same agreed starting point. It involves different moods, different tempos and tones that are all recognizably you or recognizably the brand. And it's important to mention a lot of pushback we used to have as an agency ourselves was we don't want to just use one piece of music because we have lots of different tones in our content, lots of different emotions and energies that we want to achieve and carry across. This might be based on territories, it might be based on media usage, like events rather than social media, and all of these all of these territories and media usages need to be considered. So it makes sense to build a library of all of those different moods and tempos and tones so that you have different palettes of music to be able to apply to your brand. These tracks are designed for campaigns, ads, internal uses, events, maybe it's product sounds, maybe it's sponsored or monetized advertisement online, maybe this is on YouTube, maybe it's across TV, all these different medias, and the reason I'm mentioning them, they should all still feel familiar. The brand journey should feel recognizable and familiar, because once you've gained trust of your audience, you want to be able to utilize that trust to grab their attention in different areas, in different brand media usages. And consistent sound identity across each touch point is what we are working towards. So why does this actually solve the problem? Well, it reduces decision making of the staff and endless revisions going back and forth, back and forth. It's also really bad for team morale, right? So if we can solve that, it also protects the brand identity across multiple teams, especially if you're in different territories around the world. It saves time and staff costs on content creation. So each piece of content you create actually becomes more efficient, it becomes more affordable to make, and your team can be focusing on other to-dos, other tasks that they need to get on with, rather than just using valuable time choosing music. And there's also no risk of using that same track that another brand used. If you have two pieces of content from two different brands with two very different core values, why would you risk using the same piece of music that suggests the same core values, right? If you're a health company, you wouldn't want to use the same piece of music as a cigarette brand. Okay, so we want to avoid all of those potential crossovers. That example is one I have actually found in the real world. So the process that we use, we start by defining your brand's sonic principles. Who are you? Who are you trying to connect and speak with? If your audience are really country music led, that's what connects with your audience, then we want you to not be using heavy metal rock music on your content. That's an extreme example that I'm sure does exist as an example, but it gets the message across, right? What are your core sonic principles, and what are we trying to achieve with the music? From that point, we build a sound board. It's like a mood board visually built for sound that sets the creative direction, and that's something that we all agree on. Then from there, we can compose and refine bespoke tracks that are aligned to each of those emotions. And then finally, we deliver a usable, scalable library that your team can plug straight into your already existing system, which makes all those decisions less challenging for the team to make. And the results for big brands are faster campaign delivery with no more music hunts. I'm sure you've all been in a situation where you've delivered something feeling like it could be finished, and then you've had to go back to change the music and change the edit. And why don't we just fix that up front? Brand recognition compounds with every ad. Every time you put a piece of content out, that is a compounding effect on the way that people recognize your brand. And internal teams feel aligned, they feel confident choosing sound. Some people aren't confident in what they're looking for with music. They're just adding random music into the content, and that has a huge detrimental effect. So imagine if we can empower your team to be able to choose sound confidently. And then marketing feels less subjective and it's more strategic, which is the whole plan of marketing anyway, right? Every other aspect of marketing is usually planned and it is strategic, and we've got all of these guidelines in place other than sound. So the financial perspective, let's just take another look at this. So less time equals less staff costs. That's a simple equation to work out. You also have no recurring stock licensing fees, because if you buy out all of the music in perpetuity for you to own, you can use it whenever you want across any medias. Done deal. And you can even be licensing your own music as well to be bespoke created for seasonal campaigns. You might not want to buy it in perpetuity and you just want to license it, but with one team every single time. Make it easy. Have that sound team to turn to. That's how we position ourselves in the relationship. And there's no risk of takedowns or brand confusion. I don't know if any of you remember that TikTok lost a deal with Universal Music, and every piece of music on TikTok that was related to Universal Music went silent. Content went silent globally, over millions of pieces of content. There's a huge cost on that. And greater ROI. So the return on investment through long-term sonic consistency is huge. We have been working with brands that spend hundreds of thousands a year on licensing music that they don't even own. They're just borrowing that music for a short moment of time. But imagine if your initial investment over long term starts paying you back because of the money that you're saving, but also you can earn from music. In certain ways that we can set you up with your music, you can actually earn money back from your campaigns as well, which is incredible. In fact, I don't think there's another asset that can do that other than sound. And the huge takeaway is sound shouldn't be stressful or random, just like your visuals. A sonic library, an audio library gives your brand control and clarity, and you sound like you every single time you make content. And let's not forget the efficiency, the emotion, the recognition that is included into one clear system. So what's next? If this sounds like it does solve all of the problems that you're currently facing and why you're at the end of this video, then if you're ready to cut down the noise, let's build your own audio library. Let's get you to that phase 3 that we are doing for another client right now. And we can even show you behind the scenes what we're doing for that client. We'll define your brand's DNA and then scale it properly, so your team never argues over music again. Okay, I'm gonna leave my email on screen, pause the video, note down the email, but I hope this has been helpful for you. Leave a comment down below if it has, or ping me an email. It's hard to know who is out there watching this and finding it useful, so that would be really great. And it'd be also really awesome to connect, have a deeper conversation. It doesn't cost us anything to hop on a call, talk about your specific situation and see what the solution looks like. So take me up on that offer. Other than that, I will see you hopefully in the next video.